Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1992 Czech comedy film, The Inheritance, or Fuck Off Guys, Good Day. That actually is the translation into English. In Czech, it's something along the lines of Dědictví aneb Kurvahošigutntág or Signal Ut Natag or something like that. I apologize to any Czech viewers for butchering that, but that honestly was the best that I could do. And before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the film, though, I want to give a special shout out to Radic for requesting yet another video. And if there is another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal, my Patreon, or my Cash App. The link to all three is in the video description down below, and I will try to get your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, The Inheritance, or Fuck Off Guys, Good Day, it's directed by Věra Chytilová. And Chytilová is a director who had been working for quite a long time. He had started out his career in 1963, and then this was actually his second to last film that he did before he retired. And this turned out to be one of, if not his biggest hit as a director. Now, his direction, to me, it's not really anything that's particularly that special or that spectacular, but it's fine. It's very plain. It's very serviceable. It's not the kind of direction that's really going to win any awards. But because it's a low budget comedy and there really isn't a lot of different kind of settings that the characters are in other than a farm, parts of a village, and a town, the direction really didn't need to be anything that crazy or that unique or that interesting. It didn't even really have to. It didn't have to be that way. So it just being kind of there and just kind of in the middle is not necessarily a bad thing. There are some moments though where the direction rises above mediocrity. There's a scene at near the end of the movie where the film's lead in Bohaus, he winds up having a vision of an angel that flies out of his pool. And that was a scene that was shot with a lot of style, fair amount of flair. So that was a sequence that I think definitely stood out and showed that this is a director who is capable of more than what you see throughout most of the movie, but he wasn't asked to direct the entire film like that angel sequence. He was more subdued and really kind of limited himself on purpose in order to maintain a consistent tone or a consistent visual style or feel for the comedy and for the movie that really doesn't deal with a lot of fantastical stuff other than that one scene. So overall, pretty decent job directing wise. The script is by Věra Chytilová and Bolek Polívka. Now, Bolek Polívka, he's actually the lead. He's the main actor in the film. And the script, it's also all right. It's adequate. It's not great. I do think it's got some issues, but it also could be a lot worse. It deals with this guy named Bohos who lives in actually lives on a farm. He lives on a farm with his aunt in a crumbling cottage, and he is poor and he doesn't have a job, and he's very lazy. He's definitely what you would consider to be an oaf. So he's a lazy oaf who doesn't do much on the farm, does very little. He spends a lot of his time drinking at the local pub or bar, and he also just spends a good amount of time doing nothing other than just hanging out with his friends. So he is absolutely the definition of somebody who is the epitome of like a drunken fool. Well, one day, a lawyer winds up meeting him at the local bar and tells him that he has inherited a huge fortune. His lawyer is Ulrich. And what happens next is, this drunken oaf, he winds up spending his money in various different ways, acting like a fool, going to different places that he owns in town, like a factory or a hotel, and causing a ruckus. Going to the store, or it's not really. I wouldn't consider it a store. It's more of like a market. Going to the market and refusing to pay for his brandy because he owns the place, but then eventually his lawyer pays for it. He gets a bunch of his friends, his male friends from the village, and they get into a bus that he's rented, and they go down into town, and they go to a fancy restaurant, and then they ultimately get into a fight, and he takes this older guy with him to a brothel, and they get laid. He falls for one of the women there that he saw earlier at the restaurant named Irene, ignoring the fact that there's already this other woman who is very infatuated with him named Vlasta, and he's already been romantically involved with her. Irene, she decides to move in with him, but only because he's got all this money, and eventually gets to this position where she leaves, but then she comes back later, and then it's just Vlasta and Irene, because Vlasta actually decided to move in with Bohos after Irene left. And, prior to Vlasta coming back, Bohos is doing all kinds of stuff for Irene to try to win her and try to woo her, buys her an ostrich, has this big party at his farm. And because he's rich, he's getting a lot of people around him that are asking for money. They're asking for handouts. He's getting friends of his that are asking for some money up front to buy some equipment so they can create their own spring water business. There is this whole thing earlier on when he is asked by his lawyer and this other colleague of the lawyers to sell his factory that he owns and sell it to the Japanese, but he refuses to do so because he doesn't want to cause the workers to lose their jobs. Which I'm like, okay, you have a conscience, but you treated the workers like crap the last time you were at the factory, so that doesn't really track that well. And that's definitely a problem with this script, is that Bohos, he doesn't really seem like he's that good of a guy. He definitely seems like he's just a lazy oaf, and the moments where it seems like he has some good nature just seem kind of out of place and out of character. Like the bit where he cries over his goat that wound up killing itself by accident because it strangled itself on the rope that it was tied to. Because it was tied to a tree, and then it wound up strangling itself. And then Bohos comes home to the farm later that, oh, the goat is dead. And you're like, oh, okay, that's sad. But the way he reacted was as if like this goat really meant the world to him. But you never really saw anything that would suggest that he really cares this much about this goat before that moment. And there's a lot of that in this script where he has these moments where, oh, I'm gonna buy gas for the entire village, and I'm gonna get a merry-go-round because this kid in the village asked for one. So it seems like he's actually trying to give back, but it doesn't really seem like it's genuine and sincere. It just seems like it's something that's just there in the script so he can spend all of his money. And predictably, you find out that there was something where he didn't actually have all this money. It was a technicality. There was there was something that was missed when it comes to the way that they determined who was going to get the inheritance, because he's just a step kid. You know, he's not actually the son of this rich guy, so he technically isn't the one that should be inheriting all of this. I don't understand that, especially if it's one of those things where there are no other remaining heirs. It would make sense that the step kid would be the one that would still get the money, but what do I know? And because of that, now the lawyer is asking for him for all of his money because the lawyer was spending all of his money and giving him all this money, and because it was under the assumption that he was good for it, but in reality he wasn't. And then Bauhaus has a vision late one night of an angel that flies out of his pool, and he's trying to offer it some brandy, and the angel's like, I got wings, I can't drink anything, which I actually did find to be pretty funny. And then he he's trying to be good around the angel, but he just still can't help himself, so he's still like drinking and acting all uncouth and rude and even swears. And so then the angel flies away after he's like begging the angel for help, and the angel's like, "You shouldn't say fuck," and then flies off. And I'm like, okay. That is so absurd that it's honestly pretty funny. And by the end of the movie, okay, he's poor now, he's lost everything. He helped a friend of his get a nose job, but not in the way that you think. He got a bigger nose because his nose was too small. Because apparently over here in the village, if you have a small nose, you're not a real man. Uh, that was an interesting cultural difference for sure. Because here in America, there's a stigma associated with people who have bigger noses, and a lot of it is like, make the nose smaller. Don't make it be like me getting a bigger nose. People are like, why would you do that? So that was interesting. And speaking of American, like there actually are some American references in this movie that are kind of fun. Bohos gets cable installed at his home, and he's flipping through the channels, and one of the uh, one of the shows is wrestling. It's WWE, which was WWF at the time, and it's actually footage of Earthquake and Typhoon, and then he makes a little comment on I think Earthquake, and I thought that was pretty funny. Like, that was pretty cool to see. Um, but yeah, he loses everything. The two women don't want anything to do with him. His friends don't even want anything to do with him, except for the guy who got the bigger nose. But he is also ready to essentially break off from Bauhaus because Bauhaus can't pay for his surgery bill. But then Bauhaus kind of finds a way to bullshit him and basically tell him, "Well, if you sell your car, then you can pay it and you'd actually make a profit." And he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll do that." And then out of the blue, this bearded guy shows up who looks exactly like the angel that he saw in his vision, and he tells Bohos that he's now inherited $10 million from from his actual father, not his stepfather. So now he's a millionaire again. And then he's like, "I will buy all of you." And that's the end of the movie. That's the end of the story. And I think there might have been some kind of social commentary that it's trying to do there, but it really didn't land that well. And the bulk of this movie, the bulk of the script is just various different drunken shenanigans from Bohos and his friends. And that there's only so much you can get out of that. There's only so much entertainment that can be gleaned from that and obtained from that before it gets kind of old. And it does. Like this really gets kind of dull and boring after like the hour mark because of the fact that there's not really much of anything else going on other than Bohos acting like a jackass who's got all of his money, and that's really about it. Like, he's selfish, he's just being a jerk to a lot of different people, and the money has just made him an even bigger jerk. And it's just one of those things where, like, okay, I'm supposed to root for him. Why? And it really does get to the point where it is kind of tiresome to watch this jerk off guy spend all of his money. A better a better kind of movie that deals with something like this about a guy has this inheritance and has to spend all of his money is Brewster's Millions with Richard Pryor. Like that's a much better take on a story like this because the conflict is actually a genuine conflict. There's no real conflict here other than what if he gets in trouble? What if he loses his money? But because of the fact that the character isn't really necessarily written as a guy who's particularly that likable, it doesn't really mean as much. But in Brewster's Millions, Richard Pryor's character is a likable guy, and there's a conflict where he's got to spend all of his money in like a really short amount of time, otherwise he doesn't get the inheritance. So with this, it's just some jackass, some drunk who gets all of his money and just decides to spend it in different ways. Like I think there probably is definitely some wish fulfillment here for sure. And I think this was like the first post Cold War Czech comedy like this. So I think there's probably something with the movie that kind of ties into a little bit of what was going on uh, in Czechoslovakia at that time, but I'm not entirely sure. But it's just one of those movies where story-wise, there's not really a lot there. It's pretty thin. It also is pretty thin when it comes to characterization or depth for any of these characters, including Bohos. You don't really know much about him except he lives on a farm with his aunt and he likes to get drunk and he plays a fool. Other than that, that's all you really get with him. You don't really know a whole lot about Arena. Don't really know a whole lot about Vlasta. Don't really know a whole lot about Dr. Ulrich. There's not much that you ever really get in terms of depth for any of these characters. So it's kind of bland in that regard as well. And there's some fun to be had with the misadventures of this suddenly rich drunk, but that's pretty limiting, and it's not something that is very reliable throughout the entirety of the story and the script. But like I said, it could be a lot worse because there are some moments that are fairly comedic and kind of fun. But this is also a story that would have benefited a lot more from being shorter. Because it's not really a story that has that much depth for the characters. It's not like there's multiple arcs for the characters or anything. It's not like it's particularly that deep or there's a lot of subplots. So why is it 2 hours? Just cut 30 minutes of fluff and stuff out of it and then make it a shorter movie. And then I think it would have been a lot better. And I think the story would have been something that I could get more behind if, that it has limited characterization and a very simple plot, because it's only like an hour and 30 something minutes. But the way that it is, it's just too long of a story, despite there not being that much there when it comes to the script. Now, the cast, most of the cast is really not particularly that great. I'm not really that fond of a lot of performances in this, but Bolek Polívka as Bohos, he's great. Like I legitimately really liked his performance as the drunken oaf Bohos. He just has a nice amount of charisma to him. He definitely has a screen presence. He has some good comic timing. So I would say that was absolutely, in my opinion, one of the best parts of the movie was Bolek and his performance as Bohos. Miroslav Donutil as Dr. Ulrich is just kind of meh. Just really like a straight man to Bohos and his antics, and wasn't really the best straight man either. Šárka Vojtková as Irina, gorgeous woman. Performance was okay for what she was asked to do, just play this gold digger. That's really what she is. Dagmar Veskarova as Vlasta. I would say when it comes to other main actors and actresses in this, she was the other performer that I felt did the best outside of Bolek, because I actually felt that was a pretty solid performance by her. But the rest of the cast, I mean, Anna's Anna, Aribis, a great warrior, Joseph Kroner is Kostal, Anna Pantůčková is the aunt, Břetislav Rychlík is Franček, Arnost Goldflam is Arnost. Like, the performances were just not really anything that was that amazing or that great. They were just very below average most of the time when it comes to the acting. Very amateurish type stuff. But Bolek is the one who has most of the screen time, and he does everything he can to carry this. And at points actually succeeds in doing so, because there's a fair amount of scenes in this that are only really as funny or as entertaining to watch because of his performance, and not necessarily due to the writing or anything else involving the production. Now, it does have some cinematography by Irvin Sanders, but it's not anything that's really that uh, noteworthy. It's not something that I can really pinpoint or really point out in terms of even how good or bad it is. It's just the kind of movie that, okay, you have a cinematographer, but it's not like this is a film that is really trying to have any sort of grand or spectacular visuals. So there's really not a lot to the cinematography. So I could probably say that at best it's just kind of there, but I could barely even say that because it didn't really leave that much of an impression on me. Feel the same way about the editing by John Matlock. Like, the editing is not magnificent, but it's not a total disaster either. It's just in the middle, like a lot of other things about this movie. The music by Yuri Bulis, not really that particularly memorable when it comes to the score. I think there are some other songs that I think might have been used in it, but they're really not something that sticks with you. And the runtime is way too long. Like I said, it's like 120 minutes. It's like an hour and 50 something minutes long. Way too long for a comedy about some lazy oaf who lives on a farm who winds up getting a lot of money. Didn't need to be that long. But if this kind of thing interests you, then I don't know, maybe check it out sometime. I think you might get some fun out of it. But if not, I definitely wouldn't say you should go out of your way to seek this out. But that's my thoughts and my opinion of the inheritance, or fuck off, guys. Good day. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.